Welcome to the Call to Harmony, where we explore the inner journey to oneness with self, others, and the divine. Okay, welcome back. Today, we're going to be discussing the concept of melody within the framework of melody, dissonance, and harmony. So I'm going to start off by asking Tucker, how would you describe melody, or what is melody to you?
Yeah, melody, kind of like that story I told in the last episode of the choir learning the melody. Melody is where we start with music. Melody is where we start with life. Melody is when we learn to sing unison with other people. So there have been a lot of people that have talked about faith journeys or life journeys or different types of journeys of maturing, of adult development. And let me give some examples. Brian McLaren uses this framework. We go from simplicity to complexity to perplexity to harmony. He's the first one that I learned that word and concept harmony from. I love it so much. Richard Rohr talks about we go from order to disorder to reorder. There's another teacher, Jared Halverson, that talks about we go from Eden to the fall to atonement or at one-ment. And you can hear in all of these frameworks, there's movement from an initial position where things are perhaps more clear and simple, like a melody, to something that's more complex, but can include more than the initial could include, right? And so we'll talk about it in this music analogy framework of melody, dissonance, and harmony. And in melody, it's where we start. It's when we start to get direction in life. A lot of times when we're in this stage of melody, the world is black and white. And it's very clear who the good guys are and the bad guys are, right? There's a clear line between us and them. And that's so vital because if we don't have that direction, if we don't have that clarity, the world is just too chaotic for us. It doesn't feel like we can survive in a world without melody, especially in certain times of our life. We need that stability. And what we find in melody, in this melody phase, is we find some security, some safety, some belonging. We feel like we're in an in-group, and it's beautiful, and it gives us speed and direction and purpose. Mm-hmm. And it feels so good, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'll tell my story of melody, and I'm sure everybody that's listening can relate. Melody is a gift because it just brings life into focus. So for me, growing up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, raised in a really beautiful family, very supportive, loving parents. There's 6 kids in my family. I'm third of 6. And I grew up going to church and being taught clearly right and wrong. There was good and evil laid out clearly before my eyes. And I felt like I knew how to be a good boy by keeping all of these rules, standards, commandments. And I knew when I was outside the lines. And that gave me really helpful stability in my life. And I ended up serving a 2-year mission, went to Brazil on my mission. And honestly, probably before my mission, I would say I was a church attender, a church goer, but I wasn't passionate about my beliefs until I got on my mission and started teaching other people. And then like the fire was lit. The fire was lit. Yeah. I was on fire. And in the melody time of life, it's so exciting to have something to share with others. I'll share a story from my mission that I remember being part of lighting my fire. So we were in Brazil in a town called Fortaleza, not a town. It's a huge city. And it was during a time called Carnival. You've heard of Carnival?
I have, actually.
Yeah, it's a little bit wild down there. And I remember people saying around this time, for the next few days, God's going to turn his head and not watch. So you can just get the sins out of your system so that you don't need to go. Yeah. So that is a premise for a good party, right? And
Those 2 days of your mission.
that's right. I wasn't participating in the party, but I heard what everybody was saying. I was like, really? Is it really that wild out there? And we were told if you're in an area where it doesn't feel safe to go out, then don't go out. But me and my companion were like, what could happen?
We're protected.
Yeah, we're totally protected. And so we went out working this certain day and we went to visit a little family that lived at the end of an alleyway. And this alleyway had houses lining it. Like the houses had joining walls. So it really was an alleyway where the only way out was the same way in. And there were probably 6 to 8 house fronts on each side that were joining, and then a big cement wall at the end. Can you hear the foreshadowing in my story already? Yes. There's a big wall at the end. We went down to the last house on the left, and we knocked on the door, but the lady opened her window to talk to us. So we were standing outside of her window and just chatting with her. She said her husband wasn't home, and so we couldn't stay and teach or whatever. But as we were chatting with her, I heard a clanging sound from the neighbor's house. And I looked through his window and his door was open. And I could see a guy with a really big knife just hitting the walls and the furniture. And he was so drunk.
Oh, wow.
That it was obvious he was just not in his right mind at all. Right? Yeah. But he was inside of his house and he was probably a whole 15 feet away. So what was something to worry about? I just mentioned to the wall. Yeah. We were just talking to her and I was like, whoa, he's got a knife. And she said, yeah, that's when my front door is closed. And so I turned and looked at every house around. Every door and every window was closed. The only open door was the one from his house, which was not far from him. And so I thought, oh, yeah, he must be dangerous. And so we finished the conversation and she closed her window cover so she couldn't see us anymore. Yeah. And we went back inside the house and we turned to leave. And right as we turned to leave, he walked out of his door and stood between us and the way out. Oh, wow. So this alleyway was probably 6 feet wide and he was standing right in the middle of it. So there's no way for us to get around him. And he has this big knife in his hand. Oh, and there's a cement well between us and him that's about 3 feet tall and it's got a little bucket on it. So he couldn't come right at us. He had that well between us. And he had no shirt on and he was bleeding from his forehead. This drip of blood was coming down his face and dripping off. And I turned around and I saw him and I said the most sincere prayer I'd said in my whole life. And it was this short: Heavenly Father, help us get out of this. Yeah. This developed very quickly. Yeah. And my companion, who was also from the U.S., he was newer as a missionary. So he was learning Portuguese still, and drunk Portuguese is a different language, almost completely. Yeah, sure. And so I stepped forward and take the lead in this conversation. And I was like, oh, I know what to do. I was like, hey. And he looked up at me and he was like, I know you guys. I know you guys. And this menacing voice as he's swaying back and forth with this knife. And I was like, yeah, we're your friends. And we had met him before when he was a lot less drunk. Yeah. And a lot less holding a knife. And I was like, yeah, we're your friends. We've been here before. We've met. But he didn't buy the friend part. He just kept swaying there, just totally out of his mind. And I got this brilliant idea. I was like, hey, you're bleeding from your forehead. You better go inside your house and wash that off so you don't get infection. I was very concerned about his infection. Not our safety. So kind. Right? Yeah, so considerate. So he took his free hand and he wiped his hand across his forehead and he just saw all this blood on his hand. And he got raging mad. He was like, who made me bleed? Who made me bleed? And I was like, that was a really bad idea. And he starts getting all worked up. And he was like, as long as I bleed, somebody else might as well bleed. And then he started flexing his muscles. And he was like, I once fought with 10 men. And he looks right at me as he's saying this. And he's just getting himself all worked up to come after us. And I had no idea what to do. And the most amazing thing happened. All of a sudden, he went from raging mad and flexing his muscles to totally relaxed. And he kind of dropped both hands to his sides. And then he took the knife and he put it on the well between us. I was like, what is going on? And he picked up the bucket and he started washing off his head. And I knew in the moment that I had to make a quick choice. We either had to run before he picked up the knife and poked us with it. Just a little poke. Or I had to try to grab the knife before he could get it again. Right?
Yeah.
And he had the bucket in his hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I grab the knife? Do we try to run? Grab the knife, try to run. And I had a real life freeze up experience. I don't know if you've ever had a dream or maybe a real life experience where you were so scared that you couldn't move. Mm. I had that in real life. I couldn't move my feet. I couldn't do anything. I was just petrified. I went into freeze mode. And then all of a sudden, I can't explain it, but starting in my feet, I just had this wave come up my feet, through my legs, through my chest, my arms, and my head, just this wave of courage. Mm. And I was like, I'm grabbing the knife. So I stepped forward and I grabbed the knife. And he saw that I had the knife and he was like, give me the knife, give me the knife. And at this point, I'm totally calm for whatever reason. And I was like, I'm not going to give you the knife. You're going to hurt somebody. Yeah. And so I was like, what do I do with this knife? So I looked up and there was a roof that I could reach that I knew he couldn't because I was taller than him. And so I put the knife up on the shingles of the roof. And I thought, I'm going to put it up here for now. And he looks at me doing that and he says, wait here. And so he goes inside to get something else to poke us with, I'm guessing. And I was like, he's going to hurt himself trying to climb up and get this knife. Yeah. I don't know if this was a good idea, but I took the knife down. I put it on the well. I said, here it is. But he's inside his house now and we've got some space. So he, my companion, took off speedily down the alleyway. And he came out, got the knife, and came after us. But my gosh. Two scared LDS missionaries are way faster than just a super drunk man. And so he came after us, stumbling, and we were long gone. We got up to a main street and we looked back and he's probably 100 feet behind us, waving this knife in the air, yelling all these words that they didn't teach us when we were trained as missionaries. Sure. And me and my companion, as missionaries tend to do, we were like, that was awesome.
Mothers.
Yes. We were so excited. That was the coolest thing ever.
That's our story. We're emailing all of it.
Yeah. I mean, missionaries are always wanting stories, right? Of course. We started talking about, that was amazing. We could have died. He totally could have stabbed us. We were trapped. How did that all happen? And as I thought through this, I was like, wait, I said a prayer. Heavenly Father, please help us. I was totally petrified. There was no way I was going to do anything. And then I felt this wave of courage. Like, where did that come from? I was like, God loves me. Like, God's got me. We are God's servants. We're doing his work. This is amazing. And we were so pumped and fired up about this experience. And it became a real validating experience for me. I was on God's errand. I was doing his work. I was his servant. And that experience was followed by many other experiences on my mission where I really felt supported by a divine hand, where I really felt inspired to do the right thing at the right time or say the right thing at the right time. And there were other times where I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. I mean, it's a mixed bag, but I had these great spiritual experiences that were really fortifying me. And I came home from my mission and all I wanted to do was just teach the gospel of Jesus Christ the whole rest of my life. And so I found out you could be a teacher and teach the gospel as a seminary teacher is what they're called in our church for high school age youth. And I gung-ho pursued that and got hired to be a seminary teacher. And everything about my life was sharing the message of Jesus Christ with people. And it was beautiful. Yeah. I had a purpose in life. I knew I was going to do for my career, teach about Christ my whole life. I knew how I could help everybody that I met. Help them come join our church, help them see things the way I saw them. And life just had this beautiful melody to it. I was singing in unison with a group of people around me, right? And this melody that we're singing in unison felt so good. Mm. So my job was teaching about Christ. On the weekends, I would go to church. My whole community was a church community. Yeah. My friends were all in the church, family, everything. And I was super validated by my path in life, felt good about it. I could see my future laid out. Melody is just a beautiful thing. Yeah. There's safety and security there. And the world absolutely needs melody.
Yeah.
Right? We need these unifying experiences. We need unison. We need a cause. We need direction. And without it, how would life have purpose or meaning or community? So this stage of melody is super beautiful and very valid. And oftentimes it's a stage or a phase that lasts all of life. And that's beautiful too, because without melody, there can't be harmony. There's nothing to harmonize with. And without melody, where's the direction in life? So this is a vital part of the human experience. And this is a phase that I was in my life until into my 40s.
Yeah.
Then something's happened. And I went into a stage of dissonance, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But before we go to dissonance, I want to hear you, Savannah. I want to hear you. What do you see as the gifts and the blessings and the benefits of melody, having a melody to participate in?
Yeah. I think very similar to what you were saying. I think the safety and security and the direction. And I think of even developmentally as a child, these kind of maybe boundaries, maybe that's not the best word, platform or something just that like really just shows you the way. And I feel like that's the way that I've lived most of my current life. Melody for me has been so motivating and felt very purposeful and uplifting and beautiful and simple. But also I felt like there was depth to it in some ways. But I do think that for me, growing up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, my whole life serving a mission, all the same things, I had a fire lit inside of me and I knew what I needed to do. And when I did it, it was so great. I felt so good. And I felt what I was doing had meaning and it brought me a lot of joy. It's so vital to whatever journey this life takes somebody on. And I think is, again, a very beautiful stage that maybe sometimes I have even personally been frustrated at because of where I'm at now, or maybe what dissonance has done to me sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, melody has been so crucial to helping me get to where I'm going. And I'm very grateful for that.
Beautiful. Yeah, really well said. And we will talk about dissonance in the next episode, which is such a challenging experience in life. What happens when we face dissonance, when it threatens to rob us of all these beautiful gifts that melody is bringing into our life. And then we'll also talk about harmony, because without melody, there is no harmony. And so melody is a vital piece of the whole experience and the whole picture. But oftentimes when melody starts to turn to dissonance, or we start to experience dissonance, sometimes we turn in rage to melody and be like, why did you do this to me? And yet without melody, we could never experience the growth that dissonance provides, and we could never create harmony. So without appreciating, valuing, and validating melody and your own time in melody, as well as others who are in melody, harmony isn't possible. So it's a beautiful thing. And may we celebrate the beauty of melody and the gifts that it's brought to our lives and that it's bringing to the world currently. And we'll move deeper into dissonance in our next episodes. So
stay tuned. Thank you for listening, and we hope you will join us next time on The Call to Harmony.